Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to our panel discussion on a very important topic, that is suicide, abuse, discrimination. This discussion is a part of Global Empowerment Summit. This summit is one of the biggest online event, and I'm really grateful to Andrea for giving us opportunity to speak on this critical issue. So thank you, Andrea. And this is a very critical topic that we're going to talk about because suicide rate is increasing to an alarming level. And it is heartbreaking to see that people are taking their own lives because they are struggling alone and they feel that they reach to the dead end where they feel that there's no way to go out. So they resort to suicide. They lose hope for any betterment in their life. And this is the high time that we need to prevent people from suicide. In this regard, we have arranged our today's session, and it is dedicated to create awareness about suicide, which is often stigmatized and considered a taboo topic. I'm so honored today to be joined by great experts from across the globe. So let's welcome to our panel. Let's welcome our panel of experts today. So hello everyone, and before we start the discussion, let's have a round of introduction about ourselves and about our uh, panel experts. So I'll start from myself. I'll give you a brief introduction. My name is Amreen, and I'm an industrial psychologist. And by profession, I'm a marketing research consultant, but I'm passionate about psychology and I'm an advocate of mental health. I love to create awareness about this topic because I feel that people are suffering and we need to talk more about this. That's why I write articles, I host live shows, and I regularly create content on different social media platforms. And this is definitely a part of uh, our mission to talk about these topics, to create more awareness and to save people. So I'll move to Ellison. So please introduce yourself today.
Okay, hi, my name's Alison, and I am a author and entrepreneur, and I have 32 years experience in abuse, and I'm a survivor for domestic violence relationships. And I'm from Australia in New South Wales. Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's nice, and that's nice to have you. You have such a vast experience on this. I'm sure you'd add a lot of value, and our audience learn a lot from you today. So let's move to Sheila. Yeah, please tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Anand. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Sheila Chandran, and I am actually a corporate leadership trainer by profession. But at the same time, I also do a lot of work with NGOs. So I've worked with NGOs that support women and girls. It's called Sir Optimus International. One of the things I'm passionate about is mental health because as I was growing up, my sister was also mentally retarded and there was not much help back then. So as I grew, I really learned about it and I wanted to make sure I made a difference in the world. So yes, and now I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist. So I'm actually doing direct work with people who have anxiety and depression and disorders. So yes, I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much for having me today.
Oh, thank you so much for your introduction. It's great to have someone who has gone through direct experience and so you can add a lot of wealth You brought a lot of wealth of your knowledge along with you. So thank you for your introduction. Vatsala, please introduce yourself. I took your name pronounced correctly, right? Vatsala. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the introduction, Andreen. And hi, my name is Vatsala. I'm from Malaysia. I am a social entrepreneur and also a gender-based violence trainer and activist. So I'm very passionate about ending violence against women and on the economical part of it, enabling women to earn her own 10 ringgit to fund her dreams, her life, her passion, buy her own sanitary napkin. So that's what I am advocating for. Apart from that, I also make sculptures of pregnancy, belly, and memorial casting. That's the other part of it. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a mother of two. So perhaps during this conversation, you're going to hear them screaming, and I would like to apologize before that. And yes, thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the brief and very short and crisp introduction. And so move on to Dr. Anjali.
Hi, hi. Good evening, everybody. It's great to be on this panel because it's something I'm passionate about, especially with regards to women's issues, domestic violence, child abuse, and mental health. My experience has been in the government for more than 35 years before I retired a few years ago. And as I was working with the National Population and Family Development Board, which is under the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development, Malaysia. Um, so my area of expertise is actually in marital stability, family development, parenting, policy development, and reproductive health. Since my retirement, I've taken a more active role in NGOs, especially, for example, a retirees association, as well as the National Council of Women's Organization, where there are more than 200 women NGOs affiliated to this organization, where we can look at, again, women's issues, women's empowerment, gender equality are some of the issues. And besides that, at the international level, I'm also involved in the World Family Organization as a regional focal point on families for the Asia Pacific region. And I'm indeed very happy to be a part of this panel.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I mean, you, of course, you are so actively uh, involved with a lot of activities. So definitely your experience will enrich us and enlighten
I,
our audience today. Definitely.
I hope
Dr.
so.
Keith. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Of course. No doubt about it. So move on to Dr. Kirti. Yeah.
Yeah, namaste from India.
Namaste.
I'm Dr. Kirti. Basically, I'm coming from a Gandhian family and I'm a social development professional by profession. And I am president of Vasavya Mahila Mandali, an NGO based in the southern part of India, working for the development and empowerment and making the women as change makers since last 52 years.
Wow.
When it comes to myself, I myself is a victim and survivor and trendsetter because I myself is a survivor of domestic violence and also faced a lot of abuse as a widow and knows the things as insiders. But I bounce back and I know how to bounce back.
Yeah.
I know why people get a suicide tendencies, and I'm very happy today to be part of this panel organized by Global Empowerment Summit, and wish all the audience can take it in a very positive sense and use the suggestions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. You got like a vast experience, and I'm so honored to be like, that all of you are so experienced, and at the same time, you're so passionate about sharing your knowledge with others to actually, because the thing is like, I think it's all our responsibility that if we have certain knowledge, we need to share with others so other people can benefit from our knowledge, from our experience, because most of the time that I have seen that people suffer in their silos. They feel that they are suffering alone and they don't have any place to go. And then they just suffering this, builds up builds on and on and on, and then they reach to the point where they feel that there is no a point that where they can move on further. So I think that is one of the very big reason of people moving towards suicide. So I would ask all of you that in your opinion, what are the major reasons that actually, because this is definitely not an easy decision of taking out their own life. That means there is no turning back. Once you have done, you can't go back, right? In the world. So what could be the such issue, or what could be in their mind going on that force them to take such action where where they cannot come back from? So who would like to go first?
Can I go?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Yeah,
Why the thought of suicide itself is coming to the minds?
yeah,
The as an experienced person and also went through a lot of turbulence in my life and have seen many lives in the turbulence, because I am a professional counselor and running a family counseling center. A state of helplessness and a state of isolation and a state of don't know what to do.
yeah,
So these things are so confusing for them, and then they opt to go. They might be having children also,
yeah.
women in marital life, but nothing comes into their mind at that time. The only thing is suicide is the only the answer they feel it. So the thing of support system, isolation, and the mental well-being,
Yeah,
these things are hitting them to go for a thought of suicide.
yeah, yeah. So what is like, maybe like, you can further add on to it, maybe like, Dr. Anjali or Salah
Okay,
would like to go
can
first
I?
now.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
can I just add something? I think it's a very major issue, suicide, Amreen, and we can see that over the years, the numbers of suicide cases, and WHO says there are more than almost 700,000
Yeah,
people die by suicide every year, and it's more than those killed by even accidents or malaria or war or
absolutely.
pandemic, anything. Okay, I'm not supposed to say that, but
Yeah,
what is this is that is what is actually most tragic is that these numbers are underreported. It probably will be more than that as well.
absolutely.
And just to share some research done in Malaysia by a National Health and Mobility Survey, it showed that a lot of adolescents, the younger age group, are the ones also facing a lot of these challenges mentioned by Dr. Kirti just now.
Mm,
And you see, 1 in 5 are suffering from depression. That's almost
yeah,
20%. And when you look at that, it's quite frightening as well. And 1 in 10 have anxiety, 2 in 5 have stress, and all these
mm,
are, and more than almost 4 people are suffering from many forms of mental health. It doesn't have to, it's like it range goes on: anxiety, panic attacks,
true.
stress, depression, and then I think the real serious major one would be
Mm,
helplessness and ending
yeah,
with suicide. So I think maybe not so much attention has been paid to this issue, has been
yeah,
sometimes tend to be overlooked, or we don't take it
mm,
as seriously as we take other issues into consideration.
yeah,
And when we look at mental health, and one of the because of some in what again WHO defines mental health as a state of overall well-being, and everybody has the potential to realize their potential. They can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to to give back or contribute to their family and communities. But when this doesn't happen, and their state of functioning and well-being and behavior is affected, then you have all these mental health issues, which has very serious impact on their lifestyles. In
Yeah.
terms of risk factors, I would just like to just add on to what Dr. Kirti mentioned as well. Sometimes they just is everybody has stress, but the different degrees. If panic, anxiety, then you have the stress, depression, and nothing is being done about all these stages, it can land up in a more serious scenario or outcome. And some is like family breakdown, broken relationships,
True.
loss of job, income, poor relationship, support system, and all. And the thing is, and even I would say, like, I mean, sometimes resiliency is another factor. Not everybody has the same genetic makeup or the inner strength to cope with life stresses. Like somebody said,
True.
stress is part of life. You don't want
Yeah.
stress.
Yeah.
Only when you are dead, you'll have no stress, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Very.
I think everybody will have challenges, but
Yeah.
it's how we deal with them, and we cannot be judgmental. Different persons have their own journeys and their own challenges, and what we need to be there is, I would say, we have to be a little bit of a busybody as well.
Mhm.
Don't be self-centered and only think of ourselves. But if we see
Yeah.
something is not, just have that sense of humanity, kindness. Find out, inquire, and let's see. We never
Yeah.
know. We can touch
Yeah.
somebody's lives. I think for
Yeah.
starters,
This is
that's
very
my views.
important. Yeah. 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 So any like maybe Vatsala, I think you need to add something to it. Yeah.
Yes, I think both Dr. Kriti and Dr. Anjali have covered the majority of it. For me, I think there's another notion. They just want to end the pain in them. They don't want to end their lives. It's that I cannot take it
Yeah.
anymore, and the only thing is going to help me right now is ending my life. And they just want to end the pain, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, passing it on to their loved ones. That's what they are going through. Um, in my opinion, I feel victim blaming is also a part of it. And currently, with like what Dr. Anjali said, teenagers are undergoing a lot of cyberbullying is happening, and they are unable to um, cyberbullying. There are also other gender-based violence involved online as well. So when they feel like no one's going to believe them, and the system is going to be blaming, it's all because of you did this, and they feel like the only solution or way out of this is ending their life. So I think one of it is victim blaming.
Yeah, yeah, very true. I think yeah, basically that's you said it so rightly. I mean, of course, like Dr. Kirti and Anjali also said, basically they want to actually come out from the pain, and they think that this is the only way out from this. So I think Dr. Sheila, you also want to add to it, right? That what are the main reasons that actually push them to take such a step?
Yeah, okay. First of all, I'm not a doctor though, but
Yeah.
I just want to add on. Yes, I do agree that a lot of the reasons that were brought up is true, and as Fatla said so rightly, it's that, and that's for at that point of moment, it's about getting out of the pain. It's they're not looking at the future, they're not thinking about anything else. But I just can't take this anymore. I just need to end this right now, right here. So it's about the now. It's about the here. One of the things that I've seen so much, and it's about adolescents, right? The teenagers. Many a times I noticed that they've actually taken their lives because of bullying.
Yeah.
Cyberbullying is one, but even body shaming. A lot of cases where
Yeah.
there's so much of
True.
extensive body shaming coming on, where young girls think that they need to then really lose the weight, and then if they can't, then they just don't know what else to do. Students, I've seen students where the parents are very disappointed in them, and in some cases to the extreme where they just decide, I'm no better than, I can't be any better than what I am right now. I can't see a way out, and so they just find a way to end it, not thinking about the consequences. And it's really sad. And a lot of people have told me in the past that is it true that if someone takes their life, attempts to suicide once, they won't try it again? That's not true. If they
Yeah.
fail the first time, there is strong probability that they will do it a second time. I know a guy who did it 3 times before he
Yeah.
considered it as a success, right? Because he actually died. But the
True.
fact remains is that people don't notice. If you attempted it once and the people around you have not taken the effort or noticed it, then the sad fact remains that people out there are not taking into account how they can or direct them towards help. And that's the part that I think we all need to play a part in, and make sure that there's ways for them to reach out for help.
Yeah, very true. So, Thank you. Yeah, very right. Basically, it is our all responsibility to be vigilant, to see that what's going on in others' life and be human and reach out to them. So yeah, I think Ellison, you would also like to add
Yeah.
something to it.
Yeah. With suicide, it's hard to pick up. There's not people don't all know the signs, what to look out for, and it's difficult for loved ones to know what to look for. Um, and so I agree with everyone that, you know, nobody wants to actually die. They just want what's happening to actually stop. And they just don't feel like there's any way out, that the only solution to their problems is ending their lives. Um, from my own experience, it's, you know, mental health issues, bullying, custody over children, so court hearings, and other stuff like racism and stuff like that, that I've seen my friends go through. There's so, yeah, and I guess people don't know how to react to somebody, or how to approach them, or even know what to say. They have feelings of a fear of making things worse, and they don't want to be caught, you know, saying, oh, it's your fault because you said this. And a lot of people don't know where to direct them either for help. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. You're right that they want to end the suffering because they feel that sometimes when they feel that they are um, sort of they find the dissatisfaction from their own part of themselves, like it's not the entire truth, and they want to kill that part of basically, and that is how they mistakenly sort of confuse that they don't want to kill themselves, they want to kill that part which is hurting them. Because sometimes what happens is that, like as I was also providing, like helping people, providing counseling, they, the thing is that all these in fact I told someone also that you can actually avoid a toxic person who's constantly telling you that you're bad, but you cannot avoid a person if that you are hearing from your own self. Because sometimes the inner voices keep on telling them that no, you are not worth living, maybe because that sense of that image is basically built from the outside comments, like as you guys have mentioned that like maybe the bullying or maybe the stress, the abuse, if the housewife is is sort of imprisoned, I would say, in the house where the husband is constantly saying that no, you are not good, and she's been going through the abuse and everything. Then she developed a sense of there's a self-image, and then she start sort of suffering from their own thoughts. And then, like, you can actually fight from anyone if you are satisfied from inside, but if your inner voice is not said, is not sort of in your favor or is not your friend, then it is hard to fight back. So that is something I feel that I have experienced, that people go through, and that they cannot live with their own self. They want to kill that part, that who is constantly torturing them, that again and again. So I think we also got some comment here that I read many FB posts each day from Facebook friend and people. I do not know if I sense something not quite right written between lines. I will try to send a private. Yes, definitely. If we see that, like, a lot of people also share their sort of they announce before committing a suicide or something that they were going to take the step, or maybe they're sharing the post again and again that they are going through some sad thoughts or something. So it's our responsibility to just message them and just check with them that is there anything okay or not. So moving on to the further discussion, as we discussed, that bullying is there, the abuse is there. um, do you also think that there are a lot of sort of trends going on that can affect us, or maybe some sort of like the economic downturn that maybe we are facing current times could also lead them to develop such thoughts or something about suicide, or to again to, as Dr. Kirti also mentioned, that they usually they do not even think about their kids or something. They want to actually, they just want to, and Dr. Sheila, you also mentioned, they want to they all want to focus only on themselves, that this is suffering and then we need to go out. So do you think that there's certain trends or economic factors that can affect their thinking like this?
Can I answer? Well, let me just make a comment on that one. You notice that a lot of people have been kind of stuck at home for a period of time, and the stress is getting to a lot of them because, for example, families where most of the time the parents are away at work or something, and the kids are usually being taken care of by caretakers and so forth, and now parents are having to be with the kids all the time and learning how to manage their work as well as the children as well as food, and it can get overwhelming,
Yeah,
especially in sometimes you have very patriarchal families where um, there's one person more dominant than the other. The chances are the dominant is going to say, hey, take care of the problems, solve the
yeah,
solution or find a solution. I don't want to deal with this, you deal with this. And you find that push comes to shove, they get overwhelmed, they're overly stressed, and they're stuck in a situation where they see no way out. They keep trying and trying to get out of that spot, and then it ends up becoming violent situations, and that's when domestic violence starts to take place, because they've no other avenue, right? There's no stress reliever to go out and do stuff, and so it ends up being focused inward, and you'll find that many people are in a state of confusion as to what's happening within the family, because noise levels have gone up, and so
yeah,
things have just gone out of control. So yeah, domestic violence has also gone up tremendously, which also triggers suicidal thoughts. I mean, let's face it, in today's world many people have gone through this thing where they're going through a problem and say, I just want to die, I can't take this anymore, right?
yeah,
But that's a thought, a passing thought. It comes, it goes, and then you focus on something else. But with some people it sticks because they already have emotional issues or emotional disorders, and then it just expands and gets critical. So the key thing here is the helplines that need to be out there. It's like you need to throw someone a rope and let them hold on to that rope so that they can find a way back. And that's what I think most of the NGOs and help situations are doing. But I think governments are working towards it, but it's just not strong policies out there, and there's not strong alliances between organizations to help. I see that as a challenge, actually, from the
yeah,
Malaysian perspective.
yeah,
Can I just add to what Sheila said? Uh, Sheila, I think I agree with what you said because of the situation is normally you have any family issues or marital issues and all that, but you're working out the whole day. By the time you come back, you don't really spend too much time. But with what's been happening 24/7, you are looking at each other, in especially if you live in a small apartment with small kids working from home. You probably can't stand each other and you're driving each other up the walls. And then if you
yeah,
come from a
very true.
traditional male responsibility,
Yeah,
female responsibility, you're working from home, you have young kids, and then you have to manage the kids and manage your spouse. And so there are a lot of very, very big challenges. And usually you don't have any diversion or outlet because you are confined,
yeah,
and when you don't know how to cope and deal with these issues which you are facing, and that's where you have this, like you said, a surge of domestic violence, child abuse, and all that coming into play as well, and stress. And so I think it's a very, very unexpected scenario a lot of people are facing. And if so, and you find that the burden is greater on the women, in the sense the expectations, their responsibilities are much heavier. You have your boss calling you 24/7, thinking that you are working from home. Every minute you have to go for Zoom or WhatsApp call or all that. And then your children are forever hungry and needing food and needing attention, and there comes your spouse with his needs. And so I think all these challenges are, and we see our helplines also flooded with a lot of calls. And if you ask who wants to go back to work, the first one to put out their hands will be the women. They just can't stand it anymore. Compared to the men, life is much better for them because you know so I think like Sheila said, a lot of interventions and all that is needed, but at the same time we have to look at giving them skills on how to cope with this new challenges, looking at it from a different perspective. But basically for that, let me let somebody else go on and talk about their experiences. Yeah, thanks.
No issue. Yeah, we can do it. I think Dr. Vatsala, you wanted to go next. Yeah.
Yes, I do agree with Dr. Anjali. Even the data says by UN Women that women spend 2.5 times more on their domestic care and work at home during this pandemic. Not only women, girls as well. So that has definitely put in a lot more burden on the mental health and their overall functioning, physical aspects of it. And coming back to domestic violence, before pandemic, the data said that 1 in 4 women were subjected to, gender-based violence, and now with after pandemic, it's 1 in 3, and that's alarming. It's like getting smaller, and it means three when there are 3 women in the room, at least one of them are, subjected to domestic violence or gender-based violence. So now, coming back, I do agree economical factor currently is playing a very important role. A lot of businesses shut down. Of course, the economical contributor currently is mostly the men, and hence why when they are affected, they feel like they have the privilege and rights to show it onto the spouses at home, which there's the women and so on. And women, on the other hand, because they are unable to call out for help, and of course, there is a gap here between the organizational support or the police or whatever helplines that are available, and the victim. The in between where the societal structure, the victim blaming again comes in, and most of the time, having mental health issues is like, oh, mental health issues means you're crazy. So are they going to label me crazy if I'm going to ask for help? And that's another stigma that we are all going through. And so these are some of the pain points that I'm also looking at mental issues.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the, yeah. These are very pertinent insight that that mainly like nobody wants to speak about it because there's a stigma about, and that's, I think that is the main reason that people are getting aloof when they're suffering from mental illness or even depression, because they like people do not encourage them to speak out. They don't find vent out to feeling, because nobody's there to her. Or as initially somebody said, like that if they said there's stress, and they said, okay, this is a part of life, is stress, but everyone has different sort of coping mechanism. We need to listen to them, and it's not something, there shouldn't be any stigma attached to it. If people are suffering, they should be encouraged to speak about. And as Vatsala, you very rightly said, that organizations should be should allow such discussion and encourage people to take leaves if they are even suffering from the mental health distress, because mental health problems are as pertinent, as real as physical symptoms are. Like if anyone, if person is suffering from the having a high fever, they are allowed to take leave. But if they are suffering from stress or depression, they are not. So I think this is very important. Yeah, sorry, Vatsala, you say.
I just wanted to add in, of course, the person who's going to be enabling that gap between the organization and the victim is the society. The community coordinator responds, a more responsible behaviors. It's often like the bystander effect. It's not my problem, not my circus, not my monkeys. That attitude has to go away down the dustbin. So you need to be playing an active citizenship role. Being an active, just be a normal human being, empathetic, being available for another person. It's not so bad, because sometimes as I retire, the day that 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm dead tired. But when someone says that, I've laid down my pills and I want to commit suicide, I feel like, okay, I need to hear that person, because that one life matters. Could be someone's mom, could be someone's daughter, could be someone's sister, and that matters a lot.
True, true.
And
Yeah,
just
I
to add
think,
to that,
So in
Vatsala,
that,
yeah, I think
yeah,
the
yeah,
go ahead.
Anjali, go ahead.
yeah,
No,
sorry.
I'm thinking that when a person's dies or suicides, I think it's also we have to look at it from a bigger perspective. It is society's failure. We have failed
Absolutely,
as a society.
absolutely.
We
Very true.
haven't done our part because nobody is an island. Nobody, it takes a village. So it's the
Yeah,
whole of society that has to take up this challenge of making sure that no one loses their life. And
yeah,
the other thing is that no, it, suicide is something that can happen to anybody. Is there's no
yeah,
barriers in terms of socioeconomic status or
absolutely. No,
education
no.
or gender and all that.
Yeah,
So, and it can strike any age as well, even older,
yeah,
younger, and all that. So I think we have to be aware of that, and it's sometimes beyond your control. It's just you are too overwhelmed with whatever is happening. You just find, like you say, it's part of you. You just want to remove that part. You can't, like a
yeah,
doctor, take out that part, and it just goes as
yeah,
a totality. So I think we also have to look at the macro aspect and see what society, at every level of society, the individual is one by his family, his relatives, extended family, the school system, the work system, and then you
mm,
go to the laws and all that. So maybe we can talk about that aspects as
yeah,
we
little bit.
proceed in the
Yeah,
discussion. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Sorry
Dr.
for
Kirti,
interrupting, Doctor.
yeah, no, no, issue.
It's
Dr.
okay.
Dr. Kirti wanted
Yeah.
to actually add something to it.
What I
Yeah,
feel, the three panelists adding to it, many a times when the uh, persons, those who are facing severe domestic violence, comes to us in India, they tell that I am the only one who is suffering
yeah,
because they never share it with others and there's no platform to respect them, to hear to their agonies.
yeah,
So they think that they are the only sufferers. But if we create a platform, and that's what we did it, we created a platform and asked the women to share their agonies. They think that their agony is very small compared to the other.
yeah,
So these kind of platforms are very, very essential. And the second thing which I have seen is in our educational system, we are not developing a kind of a coping mechanisms for our children when they are getting education at different levels. So giving the coping levels, it's a kind of a, even in the parenting also, we should tell them that how to train your children with the coping mechanisms if they get any kind of an issues. So all these things are very essential and see it in a very comprehensive manner, and it needs to have a bunch of issues to be dealt. And also we are seeing in a tubular vision with the domestic violence services, suicidal treatment services or prevention services, and also we have mental health services.
yeah,
So there is no triangulation among these services.
yeah.
So that triangulation of the services are also lacking.
Yeah, yeah, very true. You very rightly pointed out that this is something that we should do
Yeah.
as a society. And I think Ellison, you need to, or you also want to add something to it, right?
Yeah, with the youth, I mean, we are talking about domestic violence and stuff as well, which is fine. But I was just thinking while all of you were talking is the youth and how they actually don't. They're the least likely to speak up out of all age groups, and they're most likely to have experience bullying online at school, even experience domestic violence. And so a lot of people don't actually pick it up. Um, so recognizing it in young people is something that we need to learn more about as well. And just another thing with domestic violence, people don't realise that they can get help. And in Australia, about 52% of women didn't seek or don't seek support or help. So it's a big issue out there. So when they feel like they're in a place where they can't actually escape, that they feel like they're trapped, that they have no money, they don't have any support systems, their likelihood of having suicidal thoughts or attempting to take their own lives is a lot higher. And with this pandemic, it is increasing. In Australia, it's increased at least, last year it was 58% it increased. So it may be more now. I'm not 100% sure on that, but 58% increase is still, it's a heap, and it's like you got that's
alarming, of course.
exacerbated. Yeah, it's exacerbated by people losing their jobs, being made redundant, forced into situations where they really don't want to be in, and but people don't feel like there's help out there, that nobody's listening to them, or they just, there's like the stigma to it. They don't want to come out and say, hey, I'm not coping with this situation, I'm feeling this way, because they don't want to be labelled as crazy, and they're not crazy. They just are getting to the point where they're saying, hey, I really need help, and that's a big strength. And I think once we get into talking about suicide a lot more, and mental health and how that affects everybody in that situation, like that's been said, is that it's not discriminative. It doesn't stop with your sex, or even you don't even have to have had a traumatic life experience down in your childhood to be feeling to get to that point where you feel like that's the only option you've got. Like there seems to be no end. It just seems to be going on and on and on and on. And so
Yeah, that's true. Actually, basically, that we usually we have stigmatized this too much, that I feel like we've come to the point, like especially the discrimination part, that I think, as you mentioned, that youth has gone through a lot of bullyism, the discrimination, like especially like if we see the past. Few decades, there are a lot of like migration happened, a lot of people moving from one country to another. But the thing is that here comes they face a lot of discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicism, sex, and like whatnot. So I think the entire the discrimination part, and again, since the stigma attached to this, nobody can open up freely about it, and because they they feel shy to talk about it. Okay, they're feeling low, they feel depressed, because then the moment they say this, they have been labeled as crazy. So all this discrimination, I feel that is also one of the major thing that actually induce the depression among the like youth and the adults, like, or whichever the phase they are. But as
I have a question.
yeah, sure.
I have a
So,
question for everyone in the panel. So one thing I do realize, and I've seen this over and over again, is that people who want to commit suicide or who plan to commit suicide, there are always telltale signs. There are a lot of telltale signs. Sometimes you find, I've seen this with the younger generation, where they give away stuff. They give away things that of value to them, like they give it away to their friends and family and stuff. It's like saying goodbye with a bang. Or there's other things where they actually say it, I can't take this anymore, I can't deal with this life anymore, I just feel I need to end. So there are a lot of telltale signs.
Yes.
that you see with the young people. And I'm just wanted to ask from the experience of the panel right here, what other telltale signs are we should
Yeah.
we be looking out for so that we can actually make the community more aware and let society actually become more aware of what to look out for
Absolutely.
with those telltale
Yes.
signs.
Can I share? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think there will be a lot of telltale signs. You know, even if with a as a family, if you're really observant about our children, our spouse, our family members, if
Yeah.
you are really observant, you will be able to see some changes in their behavior.
Yeah.
Um, for example, my personal experience is I will if someone is it's for me it's like it goes from initial just stress, a little bit of panic, helplessness, hopelessness feeling, expression, then suddenly you see a change in behavior.
Yeah.
As you know, it's like a certain periods, very work wise, maybe it's very stressful, so you start bringing your stress home as well, and you tend to maybe you are helpless, you feel hopeless, you feel useless, and
Yeah.
you are very agitated, you lose your temper very fast,
Yeah.
you get irritated, and then the next stage would be like maybe you want to be alone, you keep
Yeah.
isolate yourself, and
Absolutely.
you ignore, you don't have appetite, you don't want to eat, when people are awake, you see you want to sleep, when people are asleep you want to
Yeah.
be awake. It's
Yeah.
just changing. It's not that they want to, and it's perfectly people who are no, I mean the usual, they're okay and all that, but suddenly it comes a stage and it can affect anybody anytime. So to me,
Yeah.
this is where you have to be very alert and be supportive, and take it seriously as well, and be
Yeah.
there. You don't
Yeah.
have to give a solution, but to know that somebody is listening to you. That person may be repeating the same thing hundreds of times. You are also suggesting so many or suggestions on, can you do this,
Yeah.
you can do that, trying to help and all that, and you may
Yeah.
get frustrated along the way because you feel you're talking to the wall and all, but uh, that person is not in his right frame of mind.
Yeah.
He's
Absolutely.
different from the normal personality and all that. So, and it can take months to get out of it.
True.
I mean, it's a vicious cycle. You also will get stressed out if you are a family member. You don't know
Yeah.
what to do, and the other thing is this. Like you think mental health issue. Is that person mad? Does he have to go for stay? Going to hospitals or see a psychiatrist?
Yeah.
And then as a family, you also try to maybe hide it, not let anybody else know about it,
Yeah.
and then it becomes it becomes very challenging. It affects the family as well, but to me you have to be very very serious about seeking help. You are not able to help or deal with it, then different stages of interventions, it's talking about it, and this is not the time to tell the person, oh, you do meditation, or you better
Yeah. No, no, not at all.
exercise,
Absolutely. Yeah.
or mindfulness. It doesn't
Exactly.
work. It's too
Yeah.
late. It's prevention, yes, but at that time
Yeah.
you can't do that. It's so
Yeah.
to me, it's at the very least, at least have some professional help. As a
Yeah.
family member, maybe you
Yeah.
will not
Very
be
true.
able to be objective about what to do and all that. So
Yeah.
as I said, there are
Very
many
true.
many signs, and it is children, even small children. I had a child, I mean a niece who was 3 years old, and she said, grandma, I'm very stressed, because they
Yeah.
listen to what parents say, and we also having stressful life. I say, why are you stressed? Because mommy and dad don't have time for me, they don't spend time
Yeah.
with me, and so I'm stressed. So
Yeah.
we're not talking
Even
about
we have
teenagers, we're even
to.
talking about young 5 year
Yeah.
old 4 year old kids having issues.
Yeah.
And just now somebody mentioned about parenting, and we have franchised our parenting, outsourced, and now with being in the
True.
home, not allowed to come out, 24/7 parenting, 24/7 working, 24/7
Yeah.
household responsibilities, no
True.
help. So you can
True.
imagine the whole family will be having that challenges, in that sense. So
Yeah.
okay, that's my
Yeah.
views on that. Thank you so much.
No, no, very true actually. Basically, you said it so well that, most of the time what happens is that what I have seen is that people usually disconnect themselves from social circumstances. sorry, Dr. Kirti, you were saying something. You are on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
just want to add to Anjali that many a times adding to it that they forget about the grooming themselves also,
Yes.
and not attending for any kind of a social activity
Yes.
because they want to get themselves isolated.
Yeah.
Why they are isolated? Because how the society will look at it, how the family is looking at me.
Yeah.
This is all shows that this family and society and other factors in the social institutions are looking at that individual with a discriminated attitude. So what it requires is insensitivity in dealing these issues is very, very important.
Yeah.
It's a human touch and also it needs a professional touch. So
Yeah.
both ends it has to meet it. And also when they have children, no, let the children go to the mother and hug her and let her kiss and all those things.
Yeah.
What we do is, no, no, your mother has already committed suicide and she's mad.
Yeah.
That negative terminology using
Yeah.
at the family level has to be stopped.
Absolutely.
So then a positive trend will come in the family members, making close to her and giving her a platform to share with the family members. And these things we have to create to them because otherwise they feel that they are discriminated. And also we should speak, make them to speak.
Yeah.
And other members also should take time to speak. I
Yeah.
don't have time. Nowadays, everybody tells, I don't have time. No,
Yeah.
time is for everybody 24 hours, but we should manage the time and we should give for them that gives them a life for them.
Yeah. And I think there's a comment here that the culturally women are actually discouraged to speak up.
Yes.
So I think that is also very important. Is because if they feel that they are not heard, so they don't speak up, and eventually they go to aloofness and then they isolate themselves, and that is one reason. But again, as Sheila has mentioned that these are the symptoms that we need to be to watch out. And I mean, they could be our neighbors. Like if we see that if our neighbor like was coming out every day and not she has not come out for like past 3 days, at least we should go and check on her that what is the reason, because that as a human we need to find out. And there are certain other symptoms, I would say, or the signs that we have seen that basically even because since they want to go alone, they don't want to speak up, they will not actually encourage you, because even if you try to find out that how are you and this, they will not open up easily. It is basically, and we should not take it as a sign of rudeness or something, because they're like people easily judge other, that the other person is not giving us time, so they are rude. We may not know what's going on in their mind, so try to be patient when we're dealing with anyone and don't judge. For example, if they're not coming out, they're avoiding you, they could be like something going on in their mind, and we need to find out, we need to encourage them to speak up. So yeah, I think that's so. I think what is yeah.
I just want to add in, to those amazing points. Just two things. One of it is that they become overproductive all of a sudden. You've seen them like really lacking motivation, ungroomed, and all that. And all of a sudden, they feel like I have an unfinished job in this world, so I need to do it very productively. And suddenly they are like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing charity, I'm doing this, and so on. So that's one sign that you need to watch out for. The number two is that social media posts, because I basically do my advocacy on social media. Sometimes when I scroll past some of their posts, very depressing. They share quotes relating to suicide, ending their lives, and all those are telltale signs. When I see those posts, I actually, even if I don't know them, I just send them a message like, "Are you okay? Do you need to speak to someone?" And when you're ready, I'm here. I just tell them that. So these are some of the signs we see current generation, because they don't want to speak to people, but then they want to express themselves. They use social media to
Yeah.
express themselves. Yeah, it's about.
Yeah, very true. We need to, be aware of these signs and something. Yeah,
I
so
want to address Marissa's comment there. I
yeah,
noticed that she's quite vocal in her comments. And Marissa, I acknowledge you for your comments. Yeah, and I have to admit that when we talk about cultural, let's face it, the Asian culture, generally the Asian culture has a tendency, and this is something that we grew up with: honor thy husband, make sure you follow the right pathway, don't argue, don't do this. And there's a lot of don't do, and that is being pushed on to young girls at a very young age, and they grow
yeah,
up with this mindset that we don't speak out, we don't air our dirty laundry, we
yeah,
don't talk about what's happening, it's taboo. And we need to break this culture, right? We need to stop this. And today's parents have the responsibility to make sure the young children of today understand this. So talking about it openly, letting them share their thoughts, asking about, what have you seen, what do you know about this, having that conversation now is a very important step towards the future generation having to wear away from this, right? Understanding the culture of body shaming, bullying, whatever it is. If we talk about it now, because it was taboo back in my days as well when I was growing up, and that wasn't very far along. But again, don't do this, don't do that. It's the wrong thing to do. What will people say? What will society say? And we keep having this replay in our head. And if we say the same things to our children, then we're damning them to a future of this kind of violence and abuse.
very
Yes, adding on to that, domestic violence is not a family problem that it's not a pillow talk that you keep between four walls. No, you speak out, reach out, and because when you reach out, that other people, you also become the voices of other people as well, other victims, other survivors as well.
yeah,
Thank you for sharing that,
yeah,
Marissa
very
and
true.
Sheila.
Yeah, Alison, you want to say something? Yeah,
Yeah, one of the things that when I was doing my diploma in counselling is the terminology we tend to use around suicide. Um, in a lot of countries, it's not illegal anymore, so it's not like we've committed suicide. So, and that sort of adds to the stigma of suicide because it's like frowned upon. It's religions and some cultures it's called selfishness, or you're doing it to them, and you're going to go to hell or something like that. So they don't want to talk about it. But to change the stigma, to help the stigma, the terminology when we speak about it needs to change as well, so that people don't feel so like oh, I can't talk about it because people are going to hate me, or they're going to look down on me, or it's things like that. So rather than say committed suicide,
yeah,
took their own lives, or they're thinking about taking their own life, killing themselves, that sort of thing. They keep changing that terminology is going to really help that stigma, that willingness for people to talk about it more, and approach somebody. And also to, when you do that, then people are more likely to seek help. And yeah, and they're more likely to seek help if they feel like the stigma is going. So yeah, I believe um, that is something that we as people need to change
yeah,
when we're talking about it. Just noticing that a lot of people say committing suicide when really it's not committing suicide anymore. It's a cry for help, a major cry for help.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Just changing the
yeah,
terminology can help. Yeah, very true.
yeah. Terminology plays a really big part in creating stigma and an environment where people feel like they can actually express themselves, and not hide it. And they're more likely to talk to a friend, at least one friend.
Yeah,
But yeah, if they still feel like that's something they can't, it's taboo, and their parents' religions and even their social standing, all that stuff. Um,
True.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I
that's
think
one of the things. I think I'm repeating myself. Sorry.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's one thing, as you said, that we just changing the terminology can break the stigma. So, what other things we can take to solve this problem, to create more awareness about it, and to break this stigma? What do you think? What is, because you guys are working with the government laws and to make the amendments? So, what do you think that what are the main action that we need to take as an individual and as a society?
can I just start off
Sure,
maybe? I
sure.
think one of the big issues is as not only government but NGOs and all the community organizations is to look at to understand that suicides are preventable, and
Yeah,
we all play our role. Definitely we will be able to help each other, as well as the numbers will go down. So we must make that is one. It's not the end of our issue problems or what. We have so many other ways of dealing with the challenges of life. It's just getting the right support at the right time and being in the right place. And at the government level, in terms of legality, they are looking at decriminalizing suicide. It's the only uh, crime the person commits is due to the fact that they are victims suffering from mental issues and some form of mental illness, and they don't know what to do. They're so helpless, and that's where we have to alert society and come up with prevention programs to prevent them and help them and support them. So I think that's we already they're having so much of suffering, and we try to put them in prison or what, because they're
yeah,
as you said. So I think people are becoming more aware of it's a health issue. It's just like we
yeah,
have physical health issues, mental health issue is another issue that we need to look at it in that way. How to
yeah,
help the
yeah,
person to heal and deal with life and for it from that. So I think it's a silent cry for help. It's not that they want to, but it's maybe they need help, and they don't know what to do, and
true.
they are so overwhelmed. So I think the way we look at these issues of people who have different kinds of challenges meant, so it's like depression or anxiety and all that, if it's not taken it's not helped at the different stages, then it comes, the last one is the thought of solving ending their life, and they think they are burden to their family, and sometimes even the family is blamed.
Yeah,
Society blames the family. Why didn't you know about it? Why
absolutely.
didn't you do something and all that?
Yeah,
So again, the guilt and all that lives with the family member for the rest of their lives, and they have to go for therapy and counseling and all
yeah,
that and all that. So I think it's a vicious cycle, and we need to address it right from the beginning. Even when our children are young, how to teach them coping skills, how to
yeah,
deal with life's challenges,
yeah,
how to have build self-esteem, self-care,
yeah,
self-awareness. So I think
yeah,
it starts from that, and the parents' role in this context is very, very important. So
true.
we sometimes we start lay the foundations, maybe not intentionally or unknowingly, or maybe lack some skills, but we are
Yeah,
the ones who start comparing our children. We are the ones who say you are not good enough, you are
yeah,
not doing this, you
yeah,
are like this and all that. So I think it starts from that as well. It starts from the family, and so the family has to play a very, very important role in ensuring and resilience. I think at the
yeah,
individual level, building resilience, and how do we do that? By encouraging our kids, unconditional love. We are always there for you. Listen, time together, and all that. So I think these are values which we can inculcate in our families, practice them, and hopefully we'll have less
yeah,
cases of
yeah,
issues and challenges. Yeah.
yeah,
Just adding on to that, Dr. Anjali, just to take it one step further,
Please.
one thing that we can also do is to actually work with, there's a lot of schools that have counselors, and the counselors are not trained in understanding these kind of challenges, right? Suicidal challenges and so forth. So school counselors can actually also get trained.
yeah,
I never realized until about a year or 2 years ago that every school actually does have a school counselor. But I remember that when I was in school, I never knew that one existed. So
yeah,
it's not a known fact. And
It's a new
what can
thing.
happen is we can actually do a lot more training with that and have more more counselors in school that are trained to observe and help these kids at that stage as well. And that, I think, will also allow for bullying to get lesser and lesser and things like that as well. So that's just to add on to what you said about young kids and children these days.
Yeah.
But sometimes, Sheila, just to add, the school counselors, from what I used to, my organization used to do counseling as well, as a government body. But sometimes in schools, the kids don't want to go to their school counselors because then people will know about it. They are afraid it will be not be confidential and all that. So that are other challenges with counselors as well. Because I know they have their counseling ethics and they're supposed to keep it, but again, so but I think the last 10 years they have counselors in school, and I think, as you said, they can be trained and they can be alert about all these challenges kids are facing and come in and intervene as well before it goes, more serious. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to say, Marisa, your domestic violence, and I
Yeah.
think it's a problem. And actually now we also see trend men also are victims of domestic violence.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's true.
and there are different forms of domestic. The physical is the you can see the the from the physical change. I mean, physical hurt,
Yeah,
broken
visible.
bones,
It's
or
more
swollen
visible.
eyes. You can see, but the financial abuse,
Yeah,
they're controlling them,
emotional.
social
Yeah,
control, emotional abuse, which is the worst. It just
it's that.
hits like a hammer without seeing any evidence. But so it's I think domestic violence is actually a invisible problem. It's there,
Yeah,
but not many people, because people think that the sanctity of the marriage, the family, what happens behind the
yeah,
doors is private. Nobody wants to
yeah,
interfere. So I think we need to change mindset as well, community
yeah. We
mindset.
need to
and
create more
sometimes
awareness about it so people
and
can actually
sometimes
choose.
yes, and sometimes when we are married and we
Yeah,
have domestic violence, when we go to our parents for support and they say no, you solve it with your husband, it's
yeah,
just not serious, maybe you are at
yeah,
fault, and so you
yeah,
don't know where to go. You just, like you say, you are helpless, and you are it's a very
yeah,
terrible situation. And
yeah,
especially if you're financially dependent on him, you're thinking, as a
yeah,
woman, you'll think of your child, you'll think of your family, you'll think of
yeah. And there's
everything
no
except
place for them.
yourself. You only
Very
think
true.
of yourself last, as a last, so I think we need to
Yeah,
change again and educate and empower them. So sometimes when we say we intervene and say, okay, you leave the marriage, you leave your husband, you get out of it, we will support you. But if they're not economically independent, they are
yeah.
not
They don't
educated,
have any place to go.
they
True.
have no family support, social support. What are they going to do? So
Yeah.
sometimes they just live on and say, "Never mind, for the
Yes.
sake of my children, I can bear this." And it's a sad
Yeah, that's
situation.
very sad situation.
Yeah.
I
So
think
okay.
Dr. Keith, you want to add to it?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would like to add that when we see the issue of suicide and also abuse, we should also see that the women, those who are facing it, should see the personal life, and also her professional growth is also very important. Many a times when they get married, due to biologically the women get pregnancy and give birth for a lovely children,
yeah,
and I don't they sacrifice, but they enjoy their motherhood. But
yeah,
that's the time they take off from the work, and then it continues. So where they become economically weak.
yeah,
So the systems has to be developed where maybe that a year or 2 years they can take off, but work from home and
yeah,
those kind of livelihood mechanisms and has to be improved for the woman.
absolutely.
That's what I rightly observed in all our counseling cases. That's what we observed. So that is a weak point for them, because one time she is economically independent, now she is unable to have her own earnings. So
Yeah,
that has to be taken by the governments and also NGOs. And the second thing I want to tell is mental health. When we talk of mental, people think from a negative connotation.
yeah,
So when we start using the mental health at various levels, then a positive vibes has to come and the acceptance from the community has to come.
yeah.
And as I told previously, the triangulation has to work among all the service providers working on suicide, domestic violence, and mental health itself. So then only with the bunch of services, the woman can use it. And also, as all others told that the interest in life, that's what Sin is. How can the message be spread? Many adult sufferers have lost interest in living, and watching TV is the last time to do.
True.
We are not creating an alternative avenues for the adults.
Yeah.
How you can live, that is very important. Creating them a hope in the life is more important. They can enjoy the TV, yes, watch the TV, but same time creating a kind of a hope that there is a meaning in living, and also giving them a hope that you are useful for society, your services are needed, your knowledge is needed. So that kind of a motivation. And also we see in some countries that a kind of mechanisms are between the orphanages and old age homes. And also the old age homes, the senior citizens homes, they go to the communities and they involve in the developmental activities.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. I think Vatsala, you have something to add to it. I can
Yeah,
feel
I do agree with the panelists. Economical independence is very important. Community coordinated response is important. Everyone playing an active role is important. At the same time, currently Malaysia doesn't have a better intervention program. I hope that we have that in place so that more than a punitive action, we should, otherwise, when we don't put the spotlight on the perpetrators, of course, we have bails, we have put them into jail or whatever. However, they are the economical contributors, or they usually hold the economical privilege, so they are able to pay out. The problem here is on the victim, where they are, financial dependency. Most of them, at least 80%, 85% of them, will have financial dependency or economical abuse. So they will have a harder time to rebuild their life. Though we have, all this one-stop crisis center in place, we have the shelter homes, but for them to that transition, that mental health, of course, you can give them all this shelter home 3 months, then later on you can rebuild their life. It's not that 3 months alone; it's insufficient. It's about that
absolutely.
one whole year supporting them in the ecosystem of it. It's yes, giving them financial independence, but even if you train them, where are they going to sell? What are they going to sell? Are they going to be selling? The problem, some of the problems that I see is that people come up with courses. There are thousands of them doing the same courses. How are these women going to be different? Are you providing them a privilege to market for them? All these are also important. And thank you, Dr. Anjali, for addressing that. Male to suffer from domestic violence. Yes, 1 in 10 men do suffer. Of course, why we often talk about women is that it's proportionately higher. Women, so many women that's dying. Similar to how we are dealing with COVID-19. We are focusing on COVID because so many people are dying. It's the same thing. So I think we need to have multi-level intervention. So your society, you need to do the community coordinated response. Individually, we need to play our roles. Like, okay, I need to come out, and ask for help. And are other society ready to receive them? And then outside the society is the community and the organizations, the NGOs, and then the policy making, are all these in place. So everywhere, if the interventions or changes are made, I think we're good to go. At least we won't have lots of suicide cases and domestic violence in near future. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah,
Just to
you're
add
right.
on, Vatsala, to your comment as well, just to add on a little bit more, there are organizations out there, like we're talking about how to spread the word. There are groups like Hello Spot Girl. It's a line which teaches online sex ed and puberty education and how to protect themselves from and this is targeted for the young children and the young adolescents as well. And then there's a huge group of hypnotherapists now in Malaysia that have been certified under Julian Lister, and that group of people are also ever ready, willing to help anyone who has mental stress or anxiety. In fact, they've launched a free online campaign where anyone can just register, and a hypnotherapist will be assigned to them, and then they will actually get help for that. So there are a lot of platforms out there. It's just that it's not publicized enough. And so we need the help of lots of people to publicize all these things so that they know that there is an outreach program and they can find help if they really need it.
Very true.
Thank you for sharing that, Ms. Sheila. That's amazing. I think I do agree with you. There's so many programs available, NGOs and all this movement and all that. However, like I said, there's a gap between the organizational support and the survivors and the victims and so on. So that gap has to be filled, and who else can play the role other than us and all of you who are watching? Share it, spread the news. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true. Alisa.
Okay, so I just want to go back to a gentleman who said that men tend to be silent. I don't know what his actual comment was now. Yes, men are silent victims. And I just want to say in Australia, there's 7 men per day take their lives. And it's also the biggest reason men die, then about twice more than the road toll. So it's a massive problem. I also want to talk about the counselling within schools. In Australia, we've had counsellors within schools for a few decades now. I didn't know about them when I was a kid either. I knew about them when I was in high school, but not in primary school. I had a niece who has used them. The problem with some of them is that they tell the parents what's going on, and it's not confidential. So, my niece decided she's not going to do that anymore because she doesn't want her mum to know. So there's that fear that their parents are going to find out. I mean, obviously, if you're in a domestic violence situation at home, you don't want to talk about it to the counsellor at school and then your mum and dad find out about it because they're going to go back and tell the parents what you've said and then just make it worse. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, they do need to have that training. However, there's not enough of them either. The waiting list for seeing a counsellor at school is ridiculous because there tends to just be one and they don't work every day. So, and you've got a school of 500 students, that's going to be it's a little bit unrealistic. So there's a lot schools can the education departments can actually do, but again, it all comes down to funding, doesn't it? The government, how much priority they want to put down onto this. And that's another thing is that we need to just have more discussions as well about this, like we are today, and that more panels like this talk about suicide and domestic violence. Domestic violence does take in a lot of forms, and I realised from having, talked to people after writing my book and stuff like that, there's so many people who don't know that domestic violence includes more than just physical abuse. And a lot of them have never heard of financial abuse, and they're shocked to hear about it. They're shocked to hear that there's reproductive abuse, that the technological abuse. So they don't realise that these things are now part of that domestic violence category. I didn't know what else to put it under to say. So so I think we also, we also need to educate ourselves so that when we do come across somebody who is seeking help, we know where to send them, we know where to refer them to. So we ourselves can feel empowered that we know we can help someone, or we can just help ourselves as well if we get suicidal thoughts and so forth. then we know who we can go to as well. Like in Australia, there's Lifeline. It's a 24 hours, 7 days a week helpline where people who can ring up. It's a crisis and suicide helpline with trained counsellors on the phone. So there's that, and there's the Beyond Blue, and there's kids helpline and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of people who know these things exist. So if we have more discussions and we educate ourselves, then we will be in a better position to be able to help women, men and children, and women and children escaping domestic violence, and that men actually, go through domestic violence as well. We can't forget about that either. So
Yeah.
yes, I just I just think that we need to be up on that.
Yeah, more accepting all this, and I agree with like all of you with like you highlighted like a lot of solutions, and as as Sheila said that that there are sort of a lot of organizations offering help, but a lot of people don't know. The main reason is again that because we don't talk openly, as Vatsala has already said, that the thing is the gap is there because we don't talk. We don't like people do not uh, they are not encouraged to actually speak out the mental health issues, or especially the suicide issues, openly in public forums, because they again they are labeled as something that people usually think that okay, suicide is something, although they are suffering from depression, or maybe they are having thoughts, but then again they want to avoid all these discussion and awareness because they don't want to be associated with them with it. So that's why that is where they create the vacuum between the organization or the people there who want to help and the one that who are seeking help. So and again, one more thing that I just picked up, like as Ellison has also said, that men are also silent victims, and I have seen like of course like a couple of people reached out to me as well. I know that like women are definitely are much more higher in number, but men are also suffering, and because the main reason for the men suffering is because they have been told, they've been like culturally said that they cannot open, they cannot they cannot express their emotions openly, so they tend to hide all the feelings inside. They feel again they have been maybe the problem with the women for more like is related to abuse and something, but they also face abuse in a way that they have to prove themselves to the society, because if they lose the job, they've been termed as losers. They have to earn something, some sort of money to prove to the society that they are successful, and if they don't uh, match their expectations, so they feel more burden in that sense also. So they have their set of challenges and their set of reasons to go into that direction where they feel that there is no way out, and they end up taking their lives. So again, I think these, as you also mentioned, that we need to create more awareness by having such sessions, or these we need to have more talks like this. As I think someone also mentioned in the chat, these comments that government has to take more roles of that. So I think some of you are working with the government, so maybe you can highlight that any area that where you want your support, or maybe you can influence the government to take action. So I think someone like maybe Dr. Keith is working with the government, and okay, Dr. Anjali. Yeah, so maybe
I
like you
used
can
to.
tell us, yeah,
Yeah, what
how.
we can do. Yeah, go ahead.
Me? Okay, that's a quick one. I think agree. Like you said, everybody has to play a role, but civil society's role is equally important as government's role. Government, in terms of legal, let's say decriminalizing domestic violence, suicide, all that. But I mean suicide, sorry. But I just want to add to what Alison said just now about the different kinds of domestic violence, emotional abuse, financial, social, mental, and all that. But now another new abuse that is coming up is online or digital abuse as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
So the use of digital online tools to torment someone, to abuse someone through digital WhatsApp and Snapchat and all that, or even to monitoring someone's Facebook account, social media accounts. That's another form of abuse. And the
True.
second, just another thing, just to emphasize is actually domestic violence is also another form of child abuse,
Yeah.
because the child is looking at what is happening to his mother, and then the cycle will continue. Maybe he will be learning or role model from the father, is
Yeah.
acceptable to do that.
Yeah.
So that vicious cycle goes on and on. So I think we need to expand the way we look at domestic violence as well, because if not, it'll be perpetuated through our the children who are looking at it. The girl child will think it's okay, it's acceptable, it's part of our culture, and we accept it. The boy will be thinking they are super,
Yeah.
is they are allowed to do such behavior and all that. So I think we need to educate and change the mindset. And I said it always starts in the family
That's
from young.
yeah, yeah.
In
So,
terms of
just
government,
the
yes.
one thing, Dr. Anjali, we are actually running out of time, so I think we
Okay,
just need
that's it.
to
Yeah.
maybe,
Oh,
and we have only five
okay.
minutes, so we'll just do quickly. You
Okay.
and then Dr.
That,
Kirti, and then
that,
we're gonna
Yeah,
do the
I'll
conclusion.
just
yep, yep.
tell that how to work with the government, because when any suicide is attempted or any case is, we have to go to the police station and give the complaint, or go to the hospital, get admitted. Police will also come. So
Yeah.
there comes the role of the police. We have to sensitize the police how to deal with these issues. It's
Yeah.
very, very important. It is not in an insensitive way, but to be very, very sensitive. That's what we are doing now in India.
Yeah.
In Andhra Pradesh, we are doing it. And secondly, as Anjali told, children are the silent sufferers of all this
Yeah.
agony and the journey of the domestic violence.
Yeah.
So that has to be perfectly addressed, and yes, specifically we have to address it and make them to be useful citizens for the society. Although they have been lot of exposure for violence, let them not be victims for those violence. So
Yeah.
these two I want to conclude. And also the third thing is, the whole scenario, what we have to do is, it's a gender inclusive approach. We have to
Yeah.
do it. Whoever is suffering, we have to take a role of both man, woman. There is a third gender also. It is not a demarcation, but
Yeah.
how many are suffering each wise. That's why we are talking more on the women.
True. True. Very good. Very nice, actually, suggestion. Okay, I think it's only like we're 4 minutes. So, like all of you, if you can give one sentence of suggestion. Yeah, I think Alison, you want to say
Yeah.
something? Yeah.
Okay. I just want to say, Dr. Keithy, yeah,
Yeah.
she was just mentioning about women and children, being child abused domestic violence being a form of child abuse because children are there. Now, there is a statistic that brought to mind when you were talking that 61% of women in Australia have had, 61% of incidents had children present when the incident occurred. So, yes, people don't realise that they think they might be protecting the children, or the children are in another room, but they don't realise that the children see and hear more, and actually even perceive some of this stuff as being their own fault, that their parents are fighting. So, yeah, um, that's what come to mind when I heard
Yeah,
you
Yeah.
talking about that.
so I
And
think now we thank you
yeah,
all for actually sharing a lot of knowledge with us, and I'm sure audience have benefited from our discussion today. Just like we have 2 minutes, so I'll just ask you to give one advice in just one sentence. So like in 2 minutes we can cover. So maybe Sheila, you can go first. Just one sentence, one advice that if they're suffering, or if we need to reach out to people, or what exactly we need to do.
All
I
I'm going to
can
say
tell
is the
that,
time is now.
Yeah.
yeah,
The time is now. Step up and make a difference in the lives of your children. Educate your kids. and change will happen.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Dr. Kirti, you're
No
just one
silence
message.
for violence.
Yeah,
No
I think
silence for
yeah,
violence.
that's really deep.
It includes everything.
Yeah, Dr. Anjali, what would be your one message, one line?
My message is there's no health like mental health. Look at psychological self care, physical self care, emotional self care, and spiritual self care. And that will definitely strengthen you to be able to meet the challenges of life.
Yeah. What's Salah? Just one line.
I think fundamentally it comes back to parenting, and that's like a restart button towards generational healing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Listen, just one line.
Um, there's no excuse for abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
that's plain
yeah,
and
that's
simple.
really great. Yeah, I think the main thing is just don't stay silent and reach out to whenever you feel that there's someone suffering. Reach out to help them out, and if you feel that you have no place, even then seek help. I think that's the only solution. So thank you all for the wonderful discussion today, and it was a lovely discussion, and I'm sure that we have added a lot of value and people who got benefit from us. So thank you so much, and bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.